computer. And we should be recording. We're live. Okay. Wow. Well, welcome to our Ladies Dallas meetup event. So my name is Sadiqa Watson. Everybody can hear me okay, right? Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, great. So welcome to our Ladies Dallas webinar. So my name is Sadiqa Watson. I am the organizer of Our Ladies Dallas, and I am a data scientist. I've been using R for a long time. I've given some private tutorials within our group and also given some presentations at different conferences and so on. So always willing to share what I can to help people learn more about R. And so what we've been doing for the last few weeks has been that we've been looking for other people who are maybe outside of the Dallas area, taking advantage of this COVID thing so that we don't necessarily have to have speakers that are local to join us and share some other kinds of ideas. So I was really excited that to see that we have Dr. Rachael Tatman available to join us tonight and talk to us about data science portfolios. But before we get into that, what I wanted to do was, first of all, just as a means of welcoming everyone. So we've actually had the pleasure of having people join us from, over the last few meetups, we've had people from Portugal, Canada, India, Mexico. I saw someone in the chat say that they were from Peru. Anyone else, any other countries represented here, or any other places outside of Dallas? So obviously welcoming our Dallas people first and foremost, but yeah, just tickled that we're attracting people from different parts of the world. So that is so exciting. Saudi, wow, okay. Canada, this is so exciting. Someone from Toronto, someone from Montreal. Okay, cool. So Canada is well represented tonight. Excellent. Montreal, Edmonton, Lima, Peru. Okay. This is great. That is great. And we're definitely welcoming people not only from all, Tunisia. Okay. Fort Bend County, Texas. Okay, that's welcome. Tunisia. Wow, that's awesome. That is so awesome. Wow. So not only are we welcoming people from all over New Orleans, I'm from New Orleans. Wow, we might know each other. So not only are we welcoming people from different geographic locations, but of course we're welcoming people from with different levels of experience in R. So I've been using R for a while, as has Dr. Tatman. A lot of our users are beginner, and we have the full spectrum. So I think we all have. There's always something that we can learn from each other. And so I'm really happy to see that this mix of experiences represented here. Before we kick off our introduction to Dr. Tatman, I did want to, so sometimes before we have our main speaker, we like to feature someone as a lightning speaker, where they'll just speak for 5 to 15 minutes about anything. Maybe it's just, hey, there's this cool thing I learned about this package, or something that I was able, something cool I was able to do with R that I just want to share. I don't want to put the whole lot of slides together or anything like that. I just want to share something very quickly. So we do have opportunities for those kinds of presentations. So if you're interested, if you look at our lineup of speakers and upcoming events, if that's something you're interested in, we definitely welcome that. So please reach out to me, dallas@ourladies.org. So that's one thing I was going to point out. And the other thing, as I'm sure you've probably already done, let me share my screen. Okay. Okay, everybody can see my screen, I hope. So we've got so our esteemed speaker here tonight, but we've also got another meetup event planned for next Monday. We have Dr. So-Young Sylvia Kim giving us a presentation about reproducible workflows for academic research. And as I emphasized in the description, that not only extends to research papers, dissertations, and theses, but as professionals, sometimes we have to put together these summaries of our findings, even for, if you're working at AT&T or Twitter or wherever, or at a bank, you have to put together these different things. And so any of those kinds of processes can benefit from reproducible workflows. So definitely encourage you to attend that presentation if that's something of interest to you. Dr. Kaylin Medeiros is also going to be joining us to give a presentation about Flex dashboards, which is something I've been wanting to learn more about as well. So I'm pretty excited about that. That's February 9th. And then we've got another speaker, Pavitra. She's actually a member of Our Ladies Dallas, so she's local. And she will be giving a presentation about the GT package. And she says she uses it all the time. It gives her some really good results in creating presentation ready tables. So we have already started to see people signing up for those. If you're interested in being we have a lightning speaker already signed up for our February 9th event, but if you'd like to be a lightning speaker at any of our other events, or a primary speaker, definitely reach out to me. Okay, I will stop sharing my screen. And okay, well, without further ado, I think I'll go ahead and introduce our speaker. Okay, so let me pull up my notes. Okay, so Dr. Rachael Tatman is a senior developer advocate at Rasa, where she helps developers use open source software to build great conversational AI projects. And then before that, she was at Kaggle, and I'm sure you're all familiar with Kaggle. It's part of Google. And she was doing a PhD in linguistics. So I'm sure she's got a lot of other information that she would probably want to share about her background and some of the other things that she's interested in. But primarily her talk is going to be about data science portfolio. So with that, I will turn the floor over to Dr. Tatman.
Hey, thank you, Sadika. Let me make sure my screen is shared. Okay. Yes, I'm going to be talking about data science portfolios. So a quick overview of me and how I got where I am. So my undergrad was actually in linguistics and English literature at William & Mary, which is a college in Virginia, if you're not familiar. Most people certainly on the West Coast aren't, I would say. And after that, I went to the University of Washington here in Seattle, not the one in St. Louis, that's a different one. And I got a PhD in linguistics, and I was focusing on a couple of main areas. So the first was phonetics and automatic speech recognition. I was really into speech and speech signals and how humans understand things and how we can emulate that understanding automatically. Computational sociolinguistics, which was at the time a very, very new field. And the focus is how we can use computational systems to understand or improve our understanding of the ways that human social identity interacts with the ways that they use and perceive language, and also how they do that in computational contexts. And also ethics and fairness, accountability, and transparency in NLP, which continues to be something that I think about a lot, usually, hopefully. And so my linguistics PhD was from 2012 to 2017. And then in 2017, I went to Google, Kaggle, and I started as a contractor, actually. And then I converted to full-time, which is it was pretty rare at the time, and I think it's extremely rare / kind of doesn't happen at all now. So that was my process there. And then while I was a contractor, before I converted, I was actively applying for jobs because contracts end, and I still wanted to pay rent and eat food. So I was on the faculty job market and did not get a faculty job. And I was also on the sort of industry job market, and I applied a lot of different places for a lot of different types of roles. And then I was converted at Kaggle because I was pretty far along with another team at Google, and they were like, actually, we do want to keep you. And that was the last time that I was actively on the job market looking for a job. So the current role I have at Rasa, which is a startup, we have an open source conversational AI framework. If you want to build, a chatbot, we can help you do that. And you can get started for free without having to commit to a specific cloud provider. So actually someone at Rasa reached out to me and was like, hey, we're looking for a developer advocate. And I was like, well, I'm not really looking to move, but this does sound like a really cool project. And, my background's in NLP and I'd love to get back into more language stuff. And they got me just by dint of being what seemed like a great place to work. And I've been here a little over a year now, and turns out it is in fact a great place to work. So that's been my career journey so far, at least in terms of sort of data science-y professional roles. I've had a lot of other jobs that do not fit neatly into this career story, but again, helped with that paying rent and eating food thing. And then my Twitter is down there in the corner, RCTATMAN, and that's probably the easiest way to get in contact with me. I'm very on Twitter. So this all to say, I've been, on the job market before. It was not a delightful experience, I would say. And I just want to start off with some general job searching stuff and some context for what I'm going to talk about tonight with portfolios. So data science, I'm sure I don't need to tell anyone who has been sort of looking into the field or been learning about it. It's very fast moving. When I started graduate school, it wasn't a thing you could do, right? Data scientist wasn't a job. When I finished graduate school, it was just starting to be really something that people talked about. And now I think it's a thing where different people have different ideas about how it works and what you should know to do it. And each individual person might think that it's pretty established, but if you talk to a lot of people, you might realize that the sort of the canon of knowledge that you're expected to have varies tremendously. So things change pretty fast. My survey results here, so I'm going to present a bunch of them, are from 2017, so a couple of years ago at this point. And I would say, given that, and given the fact that oftentimes the people who are putting together the job descriptions are not the people who are deeply familiar with the role that they're trying to fill, I'm sure if you're on the job market, you've heard this this advice before, but it is really true. Don't ignore the job requirements, but if there's a wish list of things that they want somebody to know, and a couple of those things, apply. Give it a shot, because likelihood is that they don't actually need all those things. It's very much a wish list, especially things that are like a PhD in machine learning, 3 publications at NeurIPS. There are few enough people that have publications at NeurIPS and enough job postings that the likelihood that they actually want and or need that is pretty low. And just sort of generally, and this is something we'll talk about quite a bit more, your ability to sell yourself and what it is that you would bring to a role is what's going to be, most compelling, particularly for, a team where they're actually a little bit flexible in what they're looking for in someone to have the job. So if you're actively job searching, I would honestly, maybe to your dog or a stuffed animal or something, practice saying why you're great. I know, especially if you are, someone who is not a man and you might have been socialized to not say that you're great, it might be a little embarrassing, but practice it. And what are your specific skills? What's your knowledge? What's the experience that you have that you'll bring to a job that would help a team that you're on? And everyone has something, right? I've worked a lot of retail jobs, so I have a lot of customer empathy, shall we say, which is a big part of the job that I do now. And zooming out even more, it's kind of, I don't need to tell y'all, stuff's happening. The world is changing. It's a pretty unstable time right now. I don't know what the field of technology broadly, or even conversational AI specifically that I work in, is going to look like in 2 years. I don't think anyone really does. So try and be, a little bit flexible. If you'd asked me 5 years ago, hey, Rachel, are you going to be working in, chatbots? I would have said, no. Why would I be working in chatbots? But I am, and I enjoy it a lot. And I think my work genuinely helps make the world better. So do your best to be flexible and imagine yourself in a lot of different places. And, just be nice to yourself. It's rough. It's rough to be finding jobs. Even in the best of times, it's rough. And right now, with so many other things going on, I think it's especially difficult. So, take breaks, spend time disconnecting. Like if you're a person who benefits from schedules and calendars, like I do, put like a 2-hour block a day on your calendar that's just like, I can't work here. I'm not allowed to work on my resume. I'm not allowed to think about work. I have to, do something that rejuvenates you, right? Like I have to take a nap. I have to read a book. And this one is like, it seems minor, but do try and get some physical activity again. It'll help with the stress. There's a lot of sort of work on burnout and stress that's like, yes, some sort of physical activity that gets your heart rate up will genuinely help your body and your mental state. Yeah, and you got that. So that's my pep talk. I know it stinks. I have, my heart goes out to y'all who are in that position of instability right now. But I'm going to do the best I can to help you by giving you some tools. So, what is a data science portfolio? It's gonna vary tremendously depending on you. But the main point of putting together a data science portfolio is that you are showing what you can do for somebody who hires you. You're showing the skills that you're bringing to a job, the experience you're bringing to a job, the sort of caliber of work that they can expect from you. So, as a general grading plan, research data science jobs, the type of job that you think you'd be a good fit for, and not necessarily like the specific company, but sort of the general set of titles that you think would be a particularly good match for you. And then show off the skills that you would need in that specific job. So again, this is from 2017. There are a number of things you need to know, but business skills are particularly helpful, particularly if you're in an analyst role. Particularly if you're in an analyst role, being able to show that you know things about how businesses work can be really, really helpful. And the majority of jobs in 2017 for people who are in data science, broadly defined, we're in technology and then academia and then finance. So those are sort of the main three pillars. And I don't know what the situation is like in Dallas, but also it sounds like a lot of y'all aren't in Dallas. So this will depend on your specific places that you're looking for jobs. Although a lot of jobs are remote right now. So I think geographic area is a little bit less important right now than it has been in the past. So one business thing to think about is startups versus larger companies. At this point, I've worked in both. So Rasa is a startup. Kaggle was a startup that was acquired by Google. Google is a large company. I don't think I needed to reiterate that. But there are pros and cons to both of them, and they're just a different experience, right? So at a startup, you're likely to have to do a lot of different things, a lot of different jobs. The environment changes really quickly. So even since I've been at my current job a year, the things that my team is responsible for has changed dramatically, and it's just going through another change right now. In general, a little bit less job security at a startup. When you are interviewing at a startup, I would encourage you to, don't let them talk you into equity instead of money. Ask for money. You can't eat equity. But also, like, how are they making money? How sustainable is that way of making money? What are their plans in the future? What are their plans for like the company as it grows? Most startups fail, so I should be clear. I'm not going to say the startup that I work at, it fails, but like we're rolling the dice. You all know statistics. Most startups fail. So keep that in consideration when you're sort of judging the amount of risk that's acceptable for you in a job. You're probably going to be more of a generalist. You're going to get to try more things. And depending on the size and sort of the specific topic of the company, purview, I don't know, the things they do, you may or may not have access to a senior mentor. So how important is mentorship to you where you are right now? In a large company, you're much more likely to be part of a team. You're likely to have a lot more structure, a lot more process. So just as an example, publishing a blog post at Google takes months. There's a bunch of review. Publishing a blog post at Rasa takes like a week, and there's a lot less review, and it's much faster, and there's just like less steps. Does tend to be more job security in general, because larger companies tend to have a lot more sort of inertia. You can generally specialize a little bit more, not always, but at a startup, like you'll probably have to cover more different roles more shallowly. At a large company, you can specialize quite a bit more, and you will probably have access to senior mentors in your role. So at Google, I had access to sort of a network of people in my job title. At Rasa, I am the most senior person with my job title. So just differences to know about. And I understand that beggars can't be choosers. And it might be that you're like, oh, I do great at a larger company, but I'm interviewing at a startup because that's who applied to my CV. And that's fine. Just things for you to know, especially folks coming out of academia. Also, if you sort of have not spent a lot of time in the tech industry or not super familiar with it, and you're only applying for roles that have data science or data scientist in the title, there are some other roles that you should know about that might be a better fit for you. So data scientists varies quite a bit in what you would actually do day to day. I would say the most of any of these roles, you could be doing analysis, you could be doing model building, you could be doing, putting models in production, you could be doing, business intelligence, wide variety of things that sort of fall under that. These job titles are related, but generally more concrete. So machine learning engineers build and deploy machine learning systems, probably using some flavor of deep learning, although not necessarily. I would say that for business applications, the sort of level of, or the sort of how common it is that people use deep learning is actually less common than you would think. So you don't necessarily need to have a deep learning specialization to work in machine learning engineering. Data engineering, building and maintaining databases and pipelines, a little bit similar to a DBA, a database administrator. You know SQL really well. If you're deep in the tidyverse, a lot of those sort of SQL concepts are baked into that, so it should be a pretty easy slip over for you. UX researchers, if you're coming particularly from academia, particularly from behavioral sciences, this might be a good path to look at. You run behavioral experiments, you analyze the results, and you try to get the people who are designing the product and implementing it to make it better and better for users. Developer relations, that's actually where I'm in. I am not a data scientist. My role is developer advocate, which is in this developer relations thing. And you talk to people a lot about various things. So the sort of two pillars of any developer relations role is educating the developer community who are using your product, which is going to be developer focused and facing. That's the products that need developer relations people. And also internally, working on user advocacy or feedback and being an expert user of the product. And then technical program or technical project managers. The technical means how to code. You may not be writing code day in, day out. Program managers generally, manage an ongoing thing that's happening. So like meetups at Google, for example, I'm pretty sure that was a program manager that was running, developer advocates going to meetups. Projects, you're working on a specific thing that has a start date and end date, and you're making sure that everything happens in time. And the manager here is more in charge of making things happen and not quite so much in charge of helping people manage people day to day in their career and their career advancement. So in these roles, you will often have to tell people to do things, but you're not actually the boss of them. So you sort of have to like convince them that, the thing that you're trying to get them to do is the right thing to do. And oftentimes these will require certifications. Also, it's not on here, but a sort of related role would be a product manager. So this would be someone who's like, okay, this is what the product should look like. I've taken all these pieces of information in, here's what we're going to do. And that would be sort of like a program manager for someone who let's say at Rasa would manage Rasa X, which is our interface for the chatbot development process. So related job titles, good to know about, particularly if you're coming from academia, may not be something that you're super familiar with. So business knowledge, something to show off in your portfolio. Another thing is domain knowledge. So broadly, show that you can do the sorts of things that you want to be hired to do. And one way of thinking about that is the types of data that you want to work with or know how to work with. So tabular relational data would be, CSVs, databases, anything that comes in a table, Excel files, that sort of thing. Text would be text, language data. I don't have to read through all of these, but many different types of data that you might be familiar with, and understanding how geospatial data works, and what it should look like. And I am not a very good geospatial person. Shape files, knowing about shape files and how to use them appropriately, and projections is a very different skill set from understanding text analysis and tokenization, and how to turn words into numbers, basically. So a point here. You've got really two options when you're putting together the portfolio. So one is really showing deep expertise in a specific type of data. And I would say probably not tabular relational, unless it's something like sensor data that you need specialized knowledge for, or I guess sensor data is time series data. Or show data that you can do work in a range of domains. So option one would be for me, I have an NLP background. If I were looking specifically for something text related, I'd pull out all my text projects. Actually, this is what I did. I don't think I actually have the way that I turn my CV into a portfolio, but basically for each of my major research projects in graduate school, I pulled that out as a separate thing. And I was like, okay, here's the timeline. Here's what I was responsible for. Here's what got did. And here were the outputs. So papers mostly, and some blog posts and talks and stuff. So that's, that would be a better fit for me because I have deep domain knowledge in one of these. Or you can be like, hey, I'm really flexible. I can handle a lot of different types of data. Here's a bunch of projects that show that. So I'm not going to have us do a group exercise, but for your own edification later on, you can think about projects that you've already done or that you could do pretty quickly, and think about where they would fit in. Are all your projects on geospatial data? Do you have a geology background? You're really good at maps. Well, maybe highlight that. Or if you have a wide statistical background and you're just oh yeah, I can do work on all these sorts of major types of data, that might be a better fit for you. And then types of data most commonly used at work. Again, this was 2017. Relational data, pretty much everybody. Text data, very, very common. Image data, much less common. And then it sort of goes down. And this might have shifted a little bit again in the years since. But yeah, I think there is a strong, I mentioned that the canon of what a data scientist should know is not sort of strongly agreed on, but you should know, how databases work and how to get data out of it and how to make that into knowledge, right? Like a thing that you can tell somebody and they'd understand. So some skills that I'd recommend that you highlight if you're looking for sort of an analyst position would be programming language of choice. Probably R in this group, maybe Python, maybe Julia if you're a little bit of a hipster. Ability to interact with the database. I'd recommend everybody have SQL queries. At least know how to write them, even if they're not part of your portfolio. Very, very common data science interview question is about writing a SQL query. Visualization, showing that you can make charts and graphs that are good and meaningful, and also you understand which ones are important for a specific project. Storytelling, so particularly if you're looking for something more in a business intelligence analyst role, being able to be okay, I had this enormous Excel file, here's the 3 important things, I put them in bullet points, I have a chart for each of them, and it's very easy to digest, even if you don't necessarily have deep familiarity with this data set, is a really important skill. And maybe a small deployment thing. I think data science is peeling off from DevOps a little bit more, and there's less of an expectation that you'll be able to do this these days, but that I have a bias sample. So if you could build like an API for something, I think that would be a good, good bona fide. Or a dashboard. Everybody loves dashboards. And again, this is from 2017, the tools that most data scientists were using, Python. I would say if you're looking for machine learning engineering roles in particular, Python probably over R. If you're looking more for an analyst position, probably R over Python would just be my preference. SQL, Jupyter Notebooks, TensorFlow, that's probably a little bit lower these days than some other frameworks. Knowing how to use a cloud provider, it doesn't have AWS, it could be, I sort of know about Azure, or I know about GCP, or about DigitalOcean, or whatever cloud provider it is that you want to stick your toes in, is a good thing. Yeah. And then what methods to focus on? This again is from 2017. You will notice that neural networks are like number 4 here, and that above them are some other things that are I would say maybe more core to day-to-day work. So logistic regression, decision trees, random forests. I know that's a little bit redundant. Bayesian techniques. I would definitely recommend that you not have, just a deep learning focused portfolio if you're looking for an analyst role. And even if you're looking for a machine learning engineering role, you should know how to do logistic regression. And code. So again, I came from academia, so speaking to other people who are coming from academia, perhaps, or just coming out of undergraduate career, there is definitely a standard of what code looks like in a more professional setting that you are not necessarily going to be taught in a class. So I would recommend having it as easy as possible for someone who is coming to your project for the first time to be able to read through. And that's, there's lots of resources out there on writing readable code, but I think that's a good first step. Use version control, use something like GitHub to track the versioning of your project. Version control or source control. Pick a style guide and use it consistently. I really like the tidyverse style guide. There's a bunch of them, but make sure you're using the same one, unless there's a reason for a different project to have a different style guide, and then I might even mention that. And linters, if you're not familiar, are little programs that go through the code that you've written, and they don't usually find like bugs, but they'll find things like, your line is too long for your style guide, or you're mixing tabs and spaces or something, and they'll just make it look much more professional and pick out things that might be confusing to someone else down the line. I'm pretty sure there's a tidyverse linter. I realize that not everyone uses the tidyverse, but I'm pretty sure. Also, break your project into multiple files. So particularly if you have like a big analysis project, I would say don't have, all of the functions you've defined just like in the body of your code. I would say have a separate file with all of the utility functions that you've written that's, documented and has doc strings and everything. And then have your data cleaning as a separate thing that you can, I would probably have that as just like a .r file that you can run from the command line over, a specific file whenever you need to. So it's nice and reproducible. Modeling I would have separately, and then model evaluation and visualizations I would have separately, just so you have really, again, professional looking modular code. Again, you're trying to convince people that they want to work with you, right? So the better looking your work is and the easier it is to follow, the probably the more delighted they would be to have you on their team. And this is a big one. Don't stick everything in your portfolio. Really, really edit it down. Recruiters are busy, hiring managers are busy. Showing that you can respect people's time is an important professional skill. So I would pick, just the absolute best projects you'd have. I'd say maybe even no more than 5 if you are looking for a number. 4 would be even better. Don't share your data cleaning. Have it in a folder, like let them see it, but don't make them go through the data cleaning in order to see, you know, your beautiful models or your beautiful illustrations. Don't share EDA. And this is just like my sort of like experience with seeing a lot of work from newer data scientists, is that you tend to have people sharing projects that are just like, they, you know, threw the spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. You have like 18 different, you know, types of visualizations. You've got, you know, a bunch of different data cleaning, and there's like a visualization, and then there's more data cleaning, and it's like a big mess, and it's sort of hard to follow, and it's not very organized. And I think, you know, at some point we all do need to do that sort of work process, but you don't need to share that. That can stay, you know, like brush those crumbs off the counter before company comes over. And I would say particularly for an analyst position, each of your portfolio pieces should have a clear story. So it should be very quick to get to the like, here's the executive level summary. Here's where you can find more information. Here's where you can like check my stats. And this last one, I'm dyslexic. I'm sure there was at least one typo in this in this presentation, but do your best to check for grammar errors and clarity, just so it's easy for people to understand what it is that you're saying. All right, some sample portfolios. So this one is from Nathaniel. You can see, again, this is from 2017. I put this together a while ago. And this is a number of projects that he had that I found really interesting and exciting. So the top one is using tabular data, but using text techniques in it. So topic modeling is a way of topic modeling is the task in NLP of taking, you know, free-form text and discerning structures within it of words that tend to be used together a lot, basically. And he took that and applied it to Legos. And then a leaflet project, so geospatial project, and then another project on the same data set, that the Lego data set, but with SQL and dplyr, so showing off, you know, the database skills. So I would say even these 3 projects together are a really cool portfolio. You can see it's not super fancy. It's just like, you know, summaries of blog posts, and you click through to the links, and just a nice mix of projects. Here's Julia Silke, who y'all might be familiar with. She's a fantastic R developer, wrote tidy text for R with David Robinson. And I don't think she's still at Stack Overflow. I think this is out of date. I think she's left. But she was at Stack Overflow when I put this together. And she just has a number of projects. And I do know that she has more than 5 here. I would say that Julia is also very senior as a developer. So if you were a junior developer, I would expect a small portfolio. For her, it's, you know, fine to have a big portfolio. She's been in the field for a while. And this is really focused on a single topic, and it is really focused around language data and text data. So she's got one on topic models. It's really more of a tutorial, which again, you would expect to see from a senior developer, because part of being, you know, more senior is mentorship and teaching. One on Amazon and Alexa and accented English, punctuation and literature, her release of tidy text, pre-version 1.0. So just a number of projects all on sort of the same general area, being like, hey, I'm really good at language data, here you go. And then one from Amber Thomas, who is a journalist at The Pudding. And she does really fantastic work. If you haven't read anything by The Pudding, I would recommend it. And she mainly does visualization work, and she does a lot of sort of what's the library for doing visualization in JavaScript? I forget, but she does a lot of extremely beautiful visualizations. So having a very beautiful, well-designed portfolio makes sense for her because she's showing, you know, hey, I am super, super good at making things look beautiful and understandable, and you can check them out right here. So a really interesting mix of projects. She's got one on makeup shades. She's got one on Purr that's a little bit more technical and more for a developer audience, and really good, you know, really well written portfolio pieces as well. So these are all sort of very, very good portfolios. And then one from Ayodele, who is, man, this is also from a while ago. This is one she actually put together when she was a student. So she's got a couple of projects here, and she has the name of the project, and she talks about the technique the project uses, and then more discussion of what it is, and then a link to the GitHub so you can go and go check it out. So the top one was image data using CNNs, the middle one was decision trees and random forests with tabular data, and then the bottom one was NLP and a variety of NLP techniques on Twitter data. So this is a good, like, I'm ready to probably more of a machine learning engineering role, but I've done a number of projects, and these are sort of good samples of that. Click. There we go. So just sort of general tips, particularly if this is your first role and you know this is what you're putting together to apply. They're going to ask you about them in the interview, so include things that you're excited about so that you can sound excited about it when they ask you about it at the in the interview. And if you're still working on them, like if you're not excited about it, it's going to be hard. It's going to be real hard to just like keep pressing and keep finishing things. I have problems finishing things even that I am very excited about these days. And I'm sure I'm not alone in that. Unique projects are better. So there's like a bajillion and one, you know, Titanic projects. Titanic is the beginner competition on Kaggle. So I have seen many portfolios that include that. And if yours includes that, I would just gently toss it aside and do something else. If you can collect the data, even so much the better. Right for humans, not machines. So especially for analyst positions, but even for machine learning engineering positions, you're trying to, you know, prove that you would be good to work with. So there should be comments in your code. You should have little, if you're using a notebook structure, you should have text in there. Otherwise it should just be a flat code file. Wow. And make sure you can explain it. So this is something that I've run into before with people where they were excited about a project and they ended up sort of copying and pasting large chunks of code and did not understand what was going on in it. And for a portfolio that you're putting together to prove that you can do the job, that is not a good signal. So even if you are sort of like building your understanding based on somebody else's example code, I would definitely retype it all out yourself and make sure you understand what's going on in it. And also keep on top of it as much as possible. If you're using a blog as a portfolio and you update it, you know, sort of semi-regularly, you won't have to keep on top of it. Have I been doing a great job with this recently? No. But also I'm not really in a portfolio stage of my career anymore. And also I'm in developer relations. So a lot of what I'm doing these days is producing video content, and the video content's all public, so people can just look it up. And get you a website. You need a website. When people Google your name, they should, I mean, if you have a very common name, it's going to be extremely rough, but maybe like your name plus data scientist, hopefully, they should be able to find a place where you have your projects, you have your contact information in a way that is safe. I wouldn't put your phone number out there, but something like your Twitter handle so people can contact you on Twitter. That works. GitHub pages are free. You can write your site in R, which serves as like in and of itself, like a fancy thing. Blog down, cards I ran into recently. I think it's CARRRDS. I haven't actually used it, but it looks like a very straightforward way to have like a beautiful, simple website. So yeah, have a website. I would say, especially for developer positions and technical positions, a website's better than a LinkedIn. And finally, this is, I think, a good general tip for people in the United States. I will say that. I do not know the degree to which this applies in other places. So the Latin phrase that means buyer beware. Caveat emptor? I don't know what it is, but I know how to look it up. For people that are just getting started in the field, job boards are a thing that they tend to use. For people who have successfully gotten a job boards are not as commonly used. So I would definitely say company website, pretty good place to do it. Job board posts are often outdated. Often they'll get a lot of like automated submissions that are not a great choice. And I would, if at all possible, particularly if it's a smaller company, I would see if you could get in contact with whoever the person doing the hiring is at the company and be like, hey, just checking. I see that you're looking for like X, 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 and Y. I'm, just why would this be a good fit for me? Where did I find my last 2 jobs? The one I'm in now, like I mentioned, they reached out to me, which is obviously not going to work if you're very junior in the field. But the previous one I found out about on Twitter. Megan Risdall, who was at Stack Overflow and is now back again at Kaggle, posted about contractor positions that they had, and I applied that way. And a lot of the other job postings that I applied for, I applied because I heard about them on Twitter. Again, very good for at least the sort of Seattle job search team. I don't know how well that's going to apply everywhere, but yeah, I have found Twitter to be very helpful, and at least for me, better than LinkedIn. So my 2 cents there. And finally, if you are looking to be in data science professionally, and also you can afford it, I would recommend this book. It's by Emily Robinson and Jacqueline Nolis, and it's Build a Career in Data Science, and they go through in much more detail than I did here, sort of the role of data scientists in a company, what sort of things you can expect to do, the job search process, hiring, yeah, but also like evaluation and progression, and it's a book and this is a talk, so there's more information there. All right, that's what I've got. I will answer questions now.
All right, wow. Well, that was quite a mouthful and a lot of really good information. So I'm sure we have questions. There have been some comments in the chat.
It was DTJS, thank you.
Some clapping in the chat. So a lot of activity. Wow. So thank you for all of that. And I can definitely echo some of the things that you have said, because as a person who unfortunately was laid off during the pandemic and was unemployed for 4 months and was trying to look for another job. I did find another one eventually, but because I ended up having to revamp my portfolio and try to make good use of my time, and definitely can share more about that. But definitely some of the things that you mentioned came in handy there. If anyone has questions, it looks like there are a couple of questions that are starting to come in through the chat. What I can do is ask you to, if you have a question, at the bottom, you should see reactions and then raise hand. So then if you raise your hand, then if you'd like, you could just type your question into chat and I can just kind of verbally read it out, and then Dr. Tatman can respond to it. Or if you'd like to verbally state your question, then I can unmute you. So, but our first question, have you ever left anything uncovered?
I think that's the majority of the advice that I have, but I will say it is more this was slightly more aimed towards an analyst role. So if you were looking to be more of a machine learning engineer and build products, I would say, maybe have a like a publicly accessible product sort of thing. That's not really my role these days, so.
Okay. And then someone says, hello, Rachel. I'm a junior studying data science at University of Central Oklahoma. What is the advice that you can give me now as a student? So currently a student, eventually looking for data science jobs. And I think that's a really important question, because a lot of times we're ready to find a job now. And there's some things that we should have done probably before, certain experiences or networking, building a website, just like you're talking about. So yeah, as a student, what kind of advice would you give?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think the generic advice is to see if you can get an internship, but I don't know. grumpy about internships in general, because I think that it's a big barrier to people getting into the field, because like I could at no point in my life could I have afforded an unpaid internship, like absolutely not. And the fact that there's sort of like this expectation that people will do them makes me so if it's an option for you, go for it. See if you can get it paid. And the other thing I would say is, so you say you're studying data science, don't just take data science courses. Like statistics and everything is okay, but I mean, at the end of the day, the data that you're looking at, you will need specialist knowledge to understand that. And it's not like statistics specialist knowledge, right? It's like, for me, I need to know about how conversations work, right? I need to know about sort of how language works, how people convey information. So I would say, yes, absolutely take the statistics and machine learning and, good code math classes and that sort of thing, but also take other classes, like take a geology course, take a anthropology course, and take a wide variety of classes to help you develop the understanding of the connection between the numbers in the spreadsheet and the thing in the world, whatever it is that you're interested in.
Okay, Clara, would you like to unmute and ask a question?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. First, I just want to say that was like a fantastic presentation and one of the few like guide presentations that is actually actionable. So thank you so much. My question is more for like the step after the portfolio, so like the interview for these positions. How would you suggest that like someone at our like the junior level prepare for interviews? Is it like, are they going to really just ask us about our project? Is it like the archaic whiteboard question? Like, how does that go? How can we prepare for that?
Yeah, I am sad to report to you that there is no good answer for data science. And data science interviews are vary tremendously. I've had ones where I've been asked to like derive things from scratch that I could not do. And I was like, I don't. I've had ones where I was given like a printed out spreadsheet and was asked to like tell them what visualizations I would do given this printout of a piece of data. I've had ones where I was asked sort of like generally to describe the data pipelines that I'd used in the past. So I would say once you're at the interview stage with a particular company, I would, before the interview, like email them and be like, hey, what types of questions are you going to ask me? If you are being interviewed as if you were a developer, there's a book that I don't have my copy around here. It's not available as a digital copy. It's only available as a print copy, and it's called Acing the Coding Interview or something like that. People will straight up take slightly modified questions from that, and there's an expectation that you know it. There's like 2 sections on machine learning, and the rest of it is all linked lists, the most relevant data structure for us. I'm extremely salty about the fact that people ask data scientists just like random coding questions that presume that you know C. So that's a possibility. You might get those. It's really, really a mixed bag, and I would ask the specific company you're interviewing for. I wish I could give you better advice.
Thank you, Clara, for that question. Ben, you're up next.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, I thank you very much, Dr. Rachel. I really, really miss the paper reading sessions that you used to do when you worked at Kaggle. I used to follow those. But my question is, currently I'm looking for a job. I found an opportunity, and I find that this opportunity is basically a setback in my career. Like it's not an analyst position, and probably it will not allow me to pursue an analyst position. And at the same time, I'm trying to pursue an academic career. So it's very complicated, and I'm not sure either do I be the patient wise guy and just wait for it, or just get into it and and I'm very nervous talking to you. Thank you again.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I am doing paper reading sessions. I mean, not on general machine learning papers over at the Rasa YouTube channel now. So you're always welcome to join for those. I mean, it's hard to give like super helpful advice without knowing like so much more about the situation. I mean, in general, once you're set on a job title, it can be kind of hard to get out of that job title in tech. Not impossible, but I mean, just as an example, at Google, if you start in a certain job ladder and you want to go to a different job ladder, usually you have to go down a level. I mean, it depends. Like, I am very aware of the need to pay rent and eat food. So if you are, you're sort of going into significant debt to not take this job, I take it. Eating food is great. Very important to continued well-being. Yeah, it really depends. If you're in an academic job search as well, like, God, that's a full-time job just to search for academic jobs. I don't know. Like it's rough out there. It's kind of hard to find jobs right now. I don't know. I'm also pretty conservative. Like I tend to take good job offers when I get given them, as shown that I was poached. Yeah, I don't know. I would talk it out with other people. I mean, there's always this is the dumbest advice, but it is helpful. Flip a coin. One side of the coin is, yes, I'm going to take the job. And the other side of the coin is, no, I'm not going to take the job. And don't do what the coin says. But once you've flipped the coin, pay attention to what your feelings are about it. And if you're like, oh, no, I did want the job. Yeah,
I used to do this. This is basically one of the advices I got. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I don't know. Good luck.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Pavitra, you're next. I'm going to ask you to unmute. And then Leo, you're up next after that.
Hey, Rachel, thank you so much for this beautiful talk. I do try and follow your, I guess, your old sessions on Twitch whenever I can. So thanks a lot for that. I did have a question with regards to how data scientists and data engineers are used really, really almost a little bit slyly, I feel. So for example, for my current role, I actually had to propose a solution using PCA. And so, of course, in my understanding, it seemed like that I would be hired as a data scientist. And of course, I did not pay close attention to what the company infrastructure is and what their data science team is, because after I joined, I realized that there was no team. And so I had to build the infrastructure from the ground up. And I've done data engineering now for about 3.5 years. So is it fair game to, like, when you get called for an interview, to say that I'd like to meet the other people in your team and to like actually get a feel for, like, what the team is built of, and if you're really going to be doing what you're supposedly interviewed for or hired to do? Because I don't know, I'm a little bit burned out at this point. So just thought I'd ask.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, just sort of speaking to my own experience, like when I was joining Rasa, I did do like a lot of informational interviews with different people on the team. At like a larger company, certainly at Google, you don't know what team you'd be working for until after they've made you like the basically the basic job offer. And then once you're like, yeah, I'm interested in working with you, then they do like team matching. So you wouldn't know what team you'd be working with until like right before you're ready to accept the job offer. But it is absolutely acceptable to, ask to meet with people and to talk about their work. I would also recommend, especially women, if you can get anybody else who knows about that company or who has talked to people at that company, it's great to sort of like ask back channel. And I would say not just women, but like anyone who's, anyone, good to do. My butt was saved very, very much from taking an offer that I thought would have been really good for me. And it was a bad situation all around. So yes, extremely reasonable. I also say the situation where like you're the first person on the data science team, they don't know what they need, right? If they're building up a data science team and you're the first person they hire, like maybe somebody knows about machine learning, but there's nobody, not like if somebody at the company already had the deep knowledge in data science and the machine learning and whatever it is that they need, they wouldn't need you, right? They wouldn't need you to be the first person. So it is, I would say, pretty common based on my experience, where the first person who's in a data role at a company ends up really with maybe something that was not what was said on the tin, because the person who was putting it into the job description didn't understand like the difference between like a DBA and a data engineer. So yeah, very, very fine to talk to somebody, very fine to like be aware that if you're the first person, you may end up doing different things than what they thought you were going to do. Yeah, I've got other thoughts about that, but I don't know how relevant that is to everybody.
Sorry, I was
End of thought.
Thank you,
That's okay.
Thank you, Pavitra. Sorry, I was muted. Thank you, Pavitra. Leo, would you like to ask your question?
Looks like you're muted, Leo.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Hey, Rachel. Thanks for the fantastic talk. My question, and Sadiqa, I guess this is to both of you. I come from a non-mathematical background, biochem. I'm currently finishing up like the tail end of my PhD in a wet lab. I've kind of had I've had to build the infrastructure for our NGS analysis like in-house, so I haven't had like any formal training. So my question is, do you have advice on how to approach gaining proficiency in mathematical background, specifically statistics? Taking 5 math stats courses isn't really an option for me, at least not in the short term. What kind of depth are data scientists, I guess in my case, entry-level data scientists expected to have? Is it more important to have a solid mathematical foundation, or is it more important to apply some of the models and techniques in your analyses and then later on filling in the detail as you go? So I'm really curious about your thoughts about that.
You want to go first, Sadiqa?
You want to go first? Okay, I can go first. I would definitely, first of all, say I'm encouraged that you decided to pursue this path, and welcome to data science. So one of the things I generally recommend, so when people talk to me about proficiency, so different definitions of data science. So, but at minimum, you should know how to code, right? Using R and or Python, make sure you have some flexibility, make sure you have some sort of exposure to data analytics, machine learning, stats, and so on. And then also make sure you have some big data experience. I would say kind of hit the high points in those. On the mathematical side, I would definitely make sure if you're not wanting to pursue an entire degree program, at minimum, take advantage of a lot of the different types of boot camps that are available. So there are some online resources that are free through Udacity, through just various platforms where you can actually go through an entire data analysis course, and you can actually take multiple ones. And I actually would recommend that because not everyone is going to go over the same depth, and then some of the different instructors will have a different perspective. So you might get something from one that you might not get from the other. But I would definitely take advantage of some of those free resources. Some of those, even though you don't necessarily have to have a PhD in statistics and have all of the different types of, know the difference between parametric and non-parametric, you don't necessarily have to know all of those different things, but make sure you hit the high points. How do I approach data? How do I handle data? What are the different types of data types? What are the different types of analyses that are appropriate for those kinds of data types? How do I summarize data? How do I perform exploratory data analysis? And how do I get insights? So you're gonna make sure you have a good general understanding of that in the beginning. And then some of that you'll build up on that from there, especially. And I would definitely be honest with the potential employers. When I was first getting into data science, I had a PhD in statistics, but I had never done any big data stuff, and I had never done any machine learning for work. I had done some stuff on the side. So I let them know ahead of time. I have some exposure in it. I had a portfolio where I kind of said, okay, here's some projects that I've worked on, but I like to learn new things. I'm good at learning things. And so if you give me a shot, then I can learn things here, and you can see that I'm a good fit for your organization. So I'll stop there. Dr. Tatman, did you want to add anything?
No, I think that's I do want to add something, but also I think that's a really good general overview. I would say in general, if you're looking for like what specific things should I learn, For machine learning engineering roles, I would say the majority of work these days tends to be supervised machine learning. So you don't necessarily need to know as much about unsupervised methods. For analyst roles, unsupervised methods tend to be a little bit more important because you're usually, somebody sends you a file and you're like, this is a PDF. This is a picture of a PDF. I'm sorry that's going to happen to some of you at some point, and it's going to ruin your day, and then you'll figure out a way around it. Also, there's a book, Statistics for Data Science, that's all written in R code, so you don't have to like understand the statistical notation. Let me see if I can find the link to it really quick. Which I like books. If you don't like books, that's perfectly fine. I don't think it's available for free online, but I think it's a really strong starting place. And if you sort of like understand the concepts in that, particularly if you already have an R background, that'll get you pretty far.
If it adds clarity, it's really started when I was reading some of the papers for the methods I was using and kind of hit a roadblock as far as looking at these equations on the page and having trouble interpreting exactly what they mean without going that next step. I'm currently trying to learn linear algebra, but
I don't know that you need to start with linear algebra necessarily. I mean, I have to read a lot of mathematical notation because I read a lot of research papers, but if that's not like a main thing that you do.
Yeah, a lot of it's going to be very specific to the specific organization that you're going into or the role that you're going into. So somebody might say, we absolutely have to have somebody that has a natural language processing background. And another one might say, we absolutely have to have somebody who knows how to build machine learning models. You know, it just kind of depends. From a general perspective, having some exposure to the general statistical, models, right? And then the general machine learning models, have some understanding of the difference between unsupervised and supervised, and know the differences, know some different varieties of each kind, and know them well. Know that you can not only pull up the code or know the function required in order to implement them, but that you also kind of understand what's happening, even though you don't necessarily have to write out all the formulas, but just kind of say, okay, I understand what a random force is doing, right? But have that level of understanding, because a lot of technical interviews will include questions about those kinds of details. Great. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that question, Leo. A question in the chat. So Rachel, someone would like to know if they can see your portfolio somewhere to see some examples.
Maybe. I don't know. I guess for a couple of years. Probably like my website is the closest thing that I have to a portfolio right now, and it is not, I would say, super updated. But I mean, I'm also in developer relations, right? So like, my portfolio these days is like the videos that I make mainly, and also like internal stuff that I can't really share. That's like, I know about products.
So in some sense, your life or the way that you carry yourself, I guess, throughout your career just becomes your portfolio. Your brand is your portfolio, essentially, right? So these portfolios are more for people who are junior, especially who don't really have that body of work and don't have that reputation to lean on as well. So that definitely makes sense.
And actually, thinking about it a little bit more, like for my role, like the way that you advance in developer relations is you get better and better known. So I guess like in a sense, my portfolio is like when you Google me, it's me. It's like stuff that I've done, which like not everyone has to do. That's very much like specific to my career role. But yeah.
All right, Stella has a question. Was the transition from academia easy, and do you have any advice on that kind of transition?
I mean, it was okay in terms of day-to-day work. It was like emotionally rough because I was really invested in being a linguistics professor, like perhaps obviously because I went to graduate school. And it's what I really wanted to do, and I really wanted to teach. And I still to some degree see myself as a linguist. So like that switch from like I'm a linguist and a researcher to being like, oh, that's not my identity anymore. And like my social network has changed, and like I still know about the things that I know about, but like what I do day to day has shifted pretty dramatically. And that sort of identity change was pretty, I would say it was pretty, I don't want to say traumatic, but like I did some journaling, I cried. Yeah, so that part I think was probably the roughest. And like my advisor was also like very fine with it. As in most fields, there are way more linguistics PhDs than linguistics jobs. In terms of day-to-day work, I think the biggest culture shock for a lot of people is often the timelines and the speed at which things move. And I had gotten a little bit of that because NLP tends to be, natural language processing tends to be, I don't need to define that for this group, sorry about that, tends to be a discipline where there's a lot of people in academia and industry. So I already knew people in industry and sort of like what their work schedules were like. Things take, months and years in academia that take weeks and days in industry. So I think a big culture shock that a lot of people have is the speed at which things move, the speed at which you're expected to turn things around, and sort of the amount of rigor. Like, don't be wrong and don't say, clearly incorrect stuff, sort of obviously, but your report is not going to be scrutinized with the same degree of expectation of deep background knowledge as a paper that you submit. So it's okay to work faster. It's okay to sort of like, skim the literature that's very relevant to you and then immediately like jump into stuff. The sort of the expectation of the quality and the painstakingness is a little bit lower, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm explaining this well. It's not slipshod, it's just like fast. And then this idea of minimum viable product that you may or may not have run into. And that's like, just get something that works as best as it can right away, and then we'll iterate on it, and then we'll improve. As opposed to like, when you submit that draft, it better be ready. It better be ready or you're wasting everybody's time. So that's I think a big culture shift for a lot of folks.
Okay, thanks for that question. Anissa, I know she hasn't asked the question before. She would like to know, what advice would you have for someone who wants to transition from being a data analyst to a data scientist?
Scratch out analyst on your resume and then write scientist over it. Oh. Straight up. Like, if you are currently a data analyst, I think that you can absolutely just like rebrand yourself.
Wow. Okay. Bold advice. Yeah. Okay.
Go for it.
And I know that you mentioned that there are some differences. So there might be the emphasis on exploratory data analysis or mining, right, as opposed to building models and so on. So there might be some other kinds of additional skills that you might want to pick up. I know that when I was applying for data science jobs, and then when I was trying to prepare myself, every job had these really long lists of requirements. And I was thinking, I'll never be a data scientist because I'll never learn all that stuff. So again, what I focused on was just hitting the high points, make sure that I had some programming experience, some analysts, analytics, machine learning, math, stats experience, and then also some big data experience. So just making sure that you have some exposure to those. Now there's some gray area, right? Because some analysts will use all of those tools, right? But I think the bigger bucks, if we're quite honest, go toward the data scientist because it's the sexier title, right? So that does open you up when you have a few extra skills, I guess, to add to your toolkit. But I definitely agree that the line is so blurry that people that I know who've called themselves data scientists, I would have probably called them data analysts, and then vice versa, so it just kind of depends on the role. But yeah, definitely go ahead and I like that advice to just go ahead and rebrand yourself as a data scientist. Love that. Cool. I'm just working through the questions here. Lots and lots of hearts and thank you and beautiful presentation. And I'm sure you can go back and look at
I hope I'm helping.
Comments. People really enjoyed these. Someone, let me go back to a question I think I skipped. I know there's a lot of things involved in data science and I actually do not know where exactly I want to focus on. Do you have advice? Do you advise that I learn more generally or be more specific now on what to do? We've kind of touched on this a little bit.
I mean, if you're sort of newer to the field, like my general advice is what worked for me and may or may not work for you. But I would find a project that you're really interested in, like a question that you really want to answer that you think you can get the data for, and then do whatever you need to do and learn about whatever you need to do to finish that project. So for me, it was my dissertation because I had to finish that. And I needed to like learn a lot to write my dissertation because I had a bunch of parts and I was doing like a system analysis and I don't go into like a whole bunch of detail on that, but I had a little bit machine learning component to my dissertation, and so I needed to learn the machine learning that I needed to know to write that, basically. And that's what really helped me learn about things, was having that end goal, and that's something that I was really excited about. Yeah, it's hard because so many people who are trying to get into it and trying to learn more are, doing other things at the same time, like a job, or being caregivers, or you do other things on your plate. So I don't want to be like, try a little bit of everything, spend forever exploring, and it'll be fine, because I know that that's not going to work for everybody. Yeah, I like project-based learning, so that's what I found very helpful, and you might like it also.
Yeah, no, I definitely second that. I learned through projects. I definitely get the theoretical concepts, but I'm not going to really gain that intuition until I have some kind of real project to get my hands dirty. So
yeah,
I agree with that. Anissa has a follow-up question. So she wants to know, if I don't enjoy big data or cloud computing, is data science for me?
I guess the question is like, what is it that you don't enjoy about it? Is it just like super big? Because you can do cloud computing with very small things, right? Like it's just like distributed, like it's not on your computer. Do I think you need to learn Hadoop to do anything? No, of course not. It might be. Yeah, let me just put it that way. It might be. Tools are improving all the time. You don't necessarily need to spend a lot of time learning like one specific framework unless you need it for a job that you're working on right now. I wouldn't recommend it because they change pretty quickly. But yeah, I like, if you're using R at all, you could be doing it in a cloud environment, right? You could be using like a hosted notebook, and I think your work experience would not be much different. Do you need to, be able to handle huge scales of data? No, I would say the majority of business data sets are under 1 million rows. Just sort of in general, the ones that are very, very large tend to be at very large companies, or sensor data. Sensor data tends to be pretty big too. But yeah, it definitely can be.
And that's definitely I would definitely agree with that, because in my previous job, we did no big data, nothing in the cloud. And I was considered a data scientist, and we all were data scientists. And then in the previous job that I had before that, where I was working at AT&T, everything's big data. There's no downloaded CSV to your laptop. You have to leave the data where it is and make sure that you can connect to it, and run the queries you need, or run the analytics on the data, build the models where the data were, using Spark, or, there's all these different tools. So a lot of it kind of depends. I know that's the standard answer, it depends. But it kind of depends on where you're going. But I wouldn't let that stop you from deciding to pursue a data science career, because you can find a job that doesn't require you to do that. And then, to your point, you might figure out, okay, what is it that's intimidating about that? So is there something where, if you were to find ways to gain a little bit more comfortability and proficiency in that area, might you feel like you have a better relationship with that kind of task, and you might feel better about using big data technologies? So yeah. Oh, good question, Anissa. Stella, who do you recommend following on Twitter besides Meg Risdale to keep up with data science?
I think Meg tweets maybe a little bit more about her hairstyle than a lot of data science these days. I'm not saying don't follow Meg. I think she's great, but she's not super talking a lot about data science. I mean, Hadley Wickham's great, especially for the R community. Francois Cholet was also chill dude. Honestly, Heather Knowles, and I have it open in this tab. I don't have it open in this tab. Her handle's like Sky Tierra, Jacqueline Knowles. The Knowleses, really good to follow, particularly about like productionizing R. They're at T-Mobile right now. I think I'm fun to follow on Twitter, but also I'm very focused on NLP. I don't do a lot of like sort of general data science stuff these days. Julia Silge, whose portfolio we looked at, is really good. She's fantastic. Iodeli, who's I also tweeted about her portfolio. She's really good on Twitter. I'd recommend following her. Our Ladies, a lot of the Our Ladies chapters have Twitters, which will have like more relevant information for you, or Pi Ladies, which is sort of the sister organization for Python. Not quite as big, but also if you're interested in Our Ladies, you might also be interested in Pi Ladies. Yeah, that's what I've got off the top of the old bowl of oatmeal. This is the bowl of oatmeal.
Excellent. That was the last question from the chat. And feel free to ask another one if you guys have one. I did have a question. Just thinking about maybe, so what you know, and maybe what you want to showcase on data science, as far as data science in your portfolio might evolve over time, right? So you have your 5 projects now.
Yep.
Would you ever recommend updating that portfolio at some sort of regularity and swapping in new projects? And I guess maybe another tangent to that question would be, are there situations where you might have diverging portfolios, where you have, for this kind of job, I want this portfolio, I have this portfolio that I want to share with people, and then I have another one for different use cases?
Oh, absolutely. So I would say if you're looking for a good sort of pace to update your portfolio on, if it's something you're actively working on, maybe quarterly, I think sounds pretty doable. So that's once every 3 months. And yeah, absolutely different portfolios for different jobs. So just like you tweak your resume and like highlight one role or aspects of one role instead of another when you're applying for a job, or like you'd write a different cover letter for different job applications. I think different portfolios absolutely make sense. Yeah. Yes, I think that's a great insight. Thank you.
Great. There's a question about the slides. Would it be possible to get access to your slides?
Yeah, I just got to put them up on my website and I'm tired.
Okay.
Yeah, there's an earlier version of it from the talk I gave in 2017 that's up there. On your website. Under my website. Yeah, I'll send you the earlier version, and then I'll, when I remember it, put up the other one.
Okay, so you're gonna send me the link and I can post it to the meetup, or are you gonna post it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So follow our group and follow the event page, and I will make sure that link is available to everyone. Anything else? Last call for questions. You have been working very hard tonight. And as have I have to say, this is the largest attendance we've had at any webinar. So like I said, it's sure a combination of you and your reputation, and also just excitement about this project. People are wondering, I want a data science job. How can I get one? She obviously has a lot of experience in getting great jobs. How can I, learn from her and some of the things that has made her transition into these different roles very successful. So yeah, I definitely have to credit you for that. Even the fact that we have 21 participants on, which is more at the end of the talk, which is more than sometimes we've had for the entire event. So this is awesome. A lot of excitement here. Wow. Yeah, no other questions coming in, looks like, so we can definitely wrap here. Looks like you put to the your data science portfolios.
Yeah. It's an older version. I'll put the updated up.
Okay, great. And I'll make sure that I put that up in the meetup page. And if you have a more recent version, I'll make sure that that's available here. But it seems like the content is pretty much here. I have recorded this presentation. So at the end of this, once it's saved to my computer, then I can start uploading it and then make it available. So I'll make sure that link is available to everybody. Lots of thank yous, lots of great presentations. You guys are wonderful, great advice, and so on. I hope the recording shows all of the group chat information. This is so awesome. Any final thoughts or comments or anything before we wrap?
I mean, thank you for putting this together, Sika. It was really nice. A little highlight of my week.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. y'all, if you're on the job market, you've got this. You're smart. You're brave. I believe in you.
You guys can do it. Yep. Absolutely. Okay. Yep. Okay. Well, that will do it. Thank you very much, Dr. Tatman. And thank you all for attending from all of these different corners of the earth, far and wide. Definitely enjoy this presentation, and I'm definitely going to make sure I get all of this information out to everyone. Appreciate your time. And with that, good night.
Good night. Thank you.